Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Adrienne MacIain, PhD. Was that close?
You totally nailed it.
Adrienne is the best-selling author of Release Your Masterpiece and a celebrated coach and inspirational speaker. She helps inspiring authors or author-preneurs spark genius with ease and enjoyment so they can continually create authentic content that transports and transforms their ideal audience simply by shifting their focus off of productivity and onto their natural creative process, the DOER cycle. I love that. I want to hear more about that. Welcome, Absolutely. Adrienne. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I deeply appreciate being invited. And as we were saying before we, turned the camera on, it's just so wonderful to have these deep conversations with people about the stuff that really matters. So yes. I'm very happy to be here doing that with you.
Yes, thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here, taking some time out of your day to chit chat, tell us more about your journey, more about what you're doing now, which sounds like you're doing some amazing things in your area of expertise. But I kind of want to start before we actually get into all the goodies of what that is. I kind of want to just get a nice foundation of just what your background is. What's a challenge that you've gone through, throughout your life on this journey that you've been in, just to kind of help us relate to you and, make sure you're human. Sometimes when we run into these coaches, it just seems like sometimes we're just so far away. We're like, there's no way I'm going to get to that point. So it's good to kind of bring us back to let us recognize that you're human too, and you went through your personal development journey, just like many of us should or are. So what's a challenge? What's a challenge that you've gone through in your life? Tell us a story.
Absolutely. So, I mean, geez. There are so many breakdown throughs I could share with you. I call them breakdown throughs because it's always a breakdown before the breakthrough, right? The story that comes immediately to mind is just bawling my eyes out on a rooftop in downtown Seattle, where I was working at a job that was not a good fit for me. And I knew it, and everybody around me knew it. And I was trying so hard to be this person that I thought the market needed me to be in order for me to get paid. And I realized in that moment that this wasn't just about my work. This was everything. This was my entire life, was me feeling like in order to be considered worthy, in order to be considered deserving of life, that I had to prove to other people that I was marketable, that my skills could pay the bills, okay? And that my authentic gifts, I realized my entire life I had been told were basically useless, were pointless, were like nice to have, oh, that's cute, that sounds fun, but that nobody was actually willing to pay for that. It was just sort of considered emotional labor that, women just do because that's just what we do, right? We have we do emotional transfer and we do all this stuff that, people just take for granted as like, that's just what we do. And I realized in that moment that I had never tried. So I didn't even know if I could get paid to do what I naturally do. I had no idea if it was possible for me to actually make a living doing what I love to do, because I had never given myself that option.
Wow.
And in my relationships, same thing. I realized I had been trying so hard to be what I thought they needed me to be, that I had never even showed up as myself. And so I had never given them the opportunity to love me as I was. Because how can you love someone as they are if they keep coming to you with this mask on of, this is what you want, right? This is what you want me to be. This is what makes you happy.
Wow.
And so that was this breaking point for me in like all areas of my life, where I realized, wow, I have been doing this completely wrong. And I actually need to start showing up authentically. And I realized I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know what my authentic gifts were. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted in relationships and in anything else in my life. I had no idea. And so I created this process, actually. This is the Release Your Masterpiece process, just to figure out for myself, what are my gifts? Who are they for? How can I bring them to the world in a way that really creates real value for the people that I care about most?
100.
So there you go.
I love it. I really like how you're saying this. I've never really thought of it that way, as far as, my background is narcissistic abuse, living with an array of individuals of all different levels of abuse in that arena. And there's always this story of, they have a mask on, they have a mask on, they have a mask on. And I love that you're kind of, in a way, showing that we also have a mask on, because we're also not showing our authentic self. And I think that is a really great way to really kind of dig it in, as far as, what is our doing?
Yeah.
And
Well, I
bringing
want to
it back
say,
to taking the power back, as far as,
yes,
what are some of the things that you're doing in that relationship? And right there, we do have a mask on.
absolutely. We have not just one mask. We have masks on masks on masks on masks on masks.
Yeah.
We have a different mask that we wear with our kids, and a different mask that we wear with our husbands, and a different, like, I actually got my PhD in performance studies. And what that is basically figuring out how we perform our lives. Okay. We are constantly performing.
Wow.
And so this book, Melting Ivory, is actually about my abuse story. So you know that I have this background as well. And one of the things that I really realized is that what I was doing was finding these people who kind of told me who to be and how to be, because I didn't know who I was. Yeah. And I felt like I needed somebody else to tell me how to be in order to feel safe, in order to feel like I wasn't going to, destroy myself and everything around me. I believed this story, this is the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves, right? The story I told myself about myself is that I was broken, is that I was dangerous, is that I needed somebody else to control me. And a lot of that comes from this not connecting deeply with our authentic desire.
What do you mean by needing someone to control you?
So,
explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I've realized in looking back at all of my kind of abusive patterns, and this went both ways. Okay. I know I picked up a lot of those abusive patterns, and I played those out in my other relationships as well, because shit rolls downhill. Right. And when we have one tool, it's like, I've got a hammer, so everything around me becomes a nail. Right. And so this is what happens when we're handed that hammer, even if it's thrown at us, we pick up that hammer and we go, well, this is what you need to do to get power. Right. And so we start hitting things with it. And so on both sides of that, I started to realize that it all came down to control. All of the abuse was about control, was about other people wanting to control me, or me wanting to control how other people felt about me, how other people viewed me. And so I felt completely out of control in my life. I was an anorexic and an orthorexic for a while. And so that was another way of controlling something, that like everything felt out of control. So this is like the one thing I can control.
Wow.
And in my relationships, what I found is that when I would find these really controlling people, these people who liked to have control, it made me feel safer for a little while because I could say, hey, keep me from messing up. Keep me from hurting you. Keep me from hurting myself. Keep me from hurting people around me. And they would kind of go, okay. And it would work for a little while until I realized, wait, they can't. Even if they wanted to, they can't actually control me. Because I still have desires. As much as I stuff them down, as much as I, push them away and judge them and say they're frivolous or they're unimportant or they're bad or they're whatever, right? They're still there. Whenever someone says to me, I don't know what I want, I always laugh because I think they know exactly what they want, but they are terrified that they're not going to get it, that it's impossible, that they can't have it. And so they pretend like they don't know what they want, or they stuff that down. And so everything else is like, well, I don't know what I want because all of this is not what I want. So I don't really want anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes some time to figure that out.
Like,
because we've gone so
years.
long without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like I've asked people sometimes, what do you want? And I, as an outsider, and they're like, I don't even know. Never been asked that before.
We get so disconnected from our authentic desires. And desire, I use the word desire on purpose because I feel like for a lot of people, it's like a dirty word, right? Like desire. Ooh, that sounds like lust. That sounds like, but I use the word desire because it actually comes from the Latin decidere, of the stars. And so your desire is actually leading you to your destiny, what is written in the stars for you. It's like your GPS signal. And so when you're on that path of going toward your authentic desire, that is the path of your destiny. That's what creates your destiny, is moving toward that. And I think as children, especially, there's like a kind of a period of our lives where we start to get taught, like, no, what you want isn't important. What you want isn't important. What other people expect of you, that's what's important. And so we start living for the expectations and trying to match up with the expectations of others instead of setting these intentions around, what do I really want to create? And that's where I think things go sideways.
What's your thought process as far as, one end of the spectrum, desires, destiny, and then we look around and there's a whole nother end of the spectrum of just people who aren't doing anything.
But I think, again, that comes from being disconnected from knowing what they want. And so they're just reacting to what other people want and expect, right? When we're not proactive, it's like, that game Bumper Cars. Have you ever been on a bumper car ride? So there is a steering wheel there, but like most of the time, you're just reacting to what's happening. Like somebody bumps into you. And so you're like, whoa. And somebody bumps into you again. You go, whoa. So you're not actually steering that little steering wheel at all, right? It's just kind of spinning around. And that's how most people go through life, is like they're on a bumper car ride and they're just getting bumped and then reacting to that rather than actually setting a destination and going, okay, I'm going to grab this wheel and then go in that direction. But the other piece that a lot of people miss is intention. And there's a difference between goal and intention. So the goal is that destination, right? Deciding this is where I'm headed. This is where I want to get. But intention is about enjoying that ride, enjoying the process, and surrendering the outcome while you're in process, just to say, hey, bumper cars is fun, right? This is supposed to be fun. I'm here to have fun. And so if somebody bumps into me, I just go, okay, that was fun. Let's do it again. And I bump into somebody else, right? And that's the game. But when you don't frame it that way, it feels like, why is everybody bumping into me? That's so rude. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bump into you. Gosh, what am I doing? It's so out of control, right?
Yes. Yes. That is 100% what most people are doing.
Yeah.
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 People who are listening, we have a live audience here listening. Thank you very much for being here, by the way. I appreciate you hanging out with us. And anyone who's watching on the replay, if you hashtag replay so that we can send you some love, that would be great too. But I want to ask individuals who are listening right now, new to the personal development arena, just kind of like taking a couple steps in, unsure, because the personal development, I think, era, arena, niche, whatever you want to call it, kind of has some some little woo-woo stuff that's kind of like intertangled in there sometimes, and people just don't want to even bother with it because where's the line at between like what actually is tangible, makes sense to the human society, the well-being, and then what is a little bit out there. And on this podcast, I've interviewed all sorts of females that do all sorts of things. And there's a distinctive line, and then it kind of like there's this gray area. So, in your opinion, I would like to know, people who are just stepping in, they're confused, they don't know what book to buy, they don't know who to follow. What would be your advice on like the first 3 or just couple of steps, whatever you want to do?
Absolutely.
But like to just like introduce themselves to whatever this is, doing it a little bit differently. What would be your take on that?
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is to clarify, what are my values? What actually matters to me? Not what I grew up believing, not what anyone around me says is important, but actually figuring out, what do I care about? And a great way to figure that out is to actually look at where you are putting your care. So care, like love, is a verb, not just a noun, right? And so it's a thing that we do. It's an act that we undertake. And so look at your life, look at where you spend your time, look at where you spend your energy and where you get the most energy back, right? Because maybe we'll spend our time doing something that actually drains us, right? But when you look at, what do I do that really brings me to life, that lights me up and gives me back more energy than I put into it, that's your value. That's what you really care about. That's where you want to be putting more and more of your energy. So I really recommend you just do that exercise of kind of a self-audit of, where do I put my time and attention and what do I get back from that? And figure out, where do I want to be spending my time? Where do I want to be putting my energy? The second thing you want to
Go ahead.
talk about that?
Well, I'm just wondering, what if they sit down, they recognize, okay, time and energy are going to these 2 places. I can see visually, physically that it's not doing me any good.
Mm-hmm.
Are they just stop, just cold turkey? That would be difficult for people.
Yeah, that's very difficult. Absolutely. So what you want to do is not so much focus on, what do I want to stop doing? You want to focus first on, what do I want to do more of? What do I want to invite more of into my life? Which brings us to point number 2, which is figuring out, what are your core desired feelings? What do you want to feel more of in your life? Because I think often when we think about goals, right? Like, write down, this is my goal. This is what I want. We think about stuff that we want to get or attain or achieve, rather than thinking about, why do I want that thing? Do I think that will make me happy? What does happiness feel like? What is joy for you? What does love feel like for you? And really getting granular on, like, what is that feeling that I'm trying to bring more of into my life? And just taking the time to actually feel that feeling as much as you possibly can, and recognize that that is the work. Just feeling the way you want to feel is the work. So that's what I would say for when someone's really just first, wading in to self-awareness and doing some self-work, just find out, what do I care about And what do I want to feel more of? Those are the main things that will really set you on the path to look at your life, like you were saying, and recognize, well, this isn't bringing me more of what I want. Could I extract my energy little by little from that thing and just put it a little bit more over here? One of the things I really recommend to everyone, and this is, of course, my big thing, is creativity. And so finding ways to express your creativity. And the reason I say that is that creativity is not something special that only certain people have. It is part of your most basic functioning as a human. It's actually what sets us apart from everything else, is that humans are creative. That is our defining characteristic. And so when you are not using your creativity, it's like having a border collie, okay, that's not herding sheep. It's just in a kennel all day and it is chewing everything it can get its teeth on, right? It is going to destroy your house eventually. As soon as you let it out even a little bit, it's like all over everything, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't let it out at all, it's going to break that kettle eventually, right? Yeah. So that energy, that creative energy, needs to be expressed. And when it is not expressed, that is not benign. It will attack the host and everything around it. So when
this can be shown in what different ways?
So what we do is we create drama. We create problems for ourselves, right? That's what we create. When we're not being creative intentionally and specifically, what we do is we create problems to solve, challenges to overcome. We create dramas to live out. That's what we do as humans. So your shadow side is busy, 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 even if you're not aware of it, creating all the time. So if you could just give it a break every once in a while and say, okay, I'm going to take this creative energy and do something with it right now, so you can just take a nap. You can chill out for a little while. You don't need to be creating problems for me right now, because I'm going to go write in a journal or draw a picture or make a beautiful meal for my family. Anything can be a creative pursuit if you set that intention of, I'm going to put my creative energy into this right here, right now.
I love that. And I think that it's important. One of the things that I've recently been looking into is just all of the different ways. You know, a lot of times when people think of creativity, it's just like painting, drawing, clay. And it's not. Like you said, food. Yeah, food is a great way. You know, dance is a great way.
And problem solving. Listen, if you have a business, okay, and you spend time solving problems in your business, that is creative. You cannot solve problems without thinking creatively, without thinking innovatively, right? Creativity and innovation go hand in hand. You cannot have the one without the other. And you can't create anything new if you're just playing out the same stories over and over and over again. And that's what we often do. We tell ourselves a story about ourselves and we just keep repeating that. It's like a little record on repeat. It's like, you know, playing that same little snippet over and over again because it's just stuck in a rut. And so what we have to do is recognize that, go, oh, I've heard that a few times, pick up that needle and deliberately move it to a new story.
Yeah. 100. I talk about that a lot with my clients, as far as telling the same story over and over and over again, and how much time just slips through our hands because we're looking for validation from all of the people for the same exact story, and really getting back to, you know, you validating yourself once and then just moving forward.
And giving yourself permission. And when you give yourself permission, you're giving everyone around you permission too. That's where the real magic happens, is when you say to yourself, okay, so I'll give you an example. So, you know, when this happened and I realized that the career that I was in was completely wrong for me, and I was terrified, and I lost my insurance and I lost my job. And, you know, here I have this daughter who is looking to me to take care of her. And I was terrified, and I thought, I'm such a bad mom. I can't believe I'm doing this to her. And then somebody said something to me that just was like, wow, which is, yeah, but now you're setting the example for her that if she decides that what she's doing isn't right for her, that she can stop doing that thing and she can choose something else. And I was like, wow. And so that's been a big thing for me. It's just recognizing that everything I do gives the people around me permission to do something similar. So when I show up as myself, I show up and shine just like exactly as I am, and I show my shit and I tell the truth, right? I give other people permission to do the same. When I say, hey, I'm going to start giving my authentic gifts and ask for value in return, I give other people permission to do the same thing. And that is so valuable.
Yeah, 100. What do you think is the number one lesson you've learned about life?
You're worthy. You were born worthy. You don't have to prove your worthiness to yourself or to anyone. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to deserve it. It's just by pure grace alone. You didn't ask to be born. Here you are. You're worthy. Okay? You're worthy of life. And you're worthy of the most magical parts of life: creativity, joy, love, right? You didn't do anything to earn or deserve those things. They're yours by pure grace. So just have gratitude for that worthiness, because it already is.
Yeah.
There
What
you
about
go.
for those that don't believe that?
Look for the evidence.
Ooh, tell us more.
Yes. What we do is our focus determines our reality. And there's so many things that we could be focusing on, right? There's always reason for despair. Believe me, the world is large, and there is always reason to be upset about something or angry at something, or like to despair, essentially, and go, there's no point. Apathy is better, right? There's always reasons for that. But there's also always reasons for hope. There's always reasons to believe that things can improve, that you can matter, that you have a purpose, all of that stuff, right? That you are worthy. The evidence is out there. You're just not looking at it. You're looking at the opposite evidence. And so just taking that time, again, recognizing that this is the work to just look at reasons why I am worthy, reasons why I am grateful, reasons why, I do have good things in my life, and just acknowledging those good things is recognizing, like, I must be worthy because here's this good thing. And so it's that focus on the right evidence.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What would you wish for?
I have such a specific wish.
Yes.
So I have a dream. My dream is I want to have basically an off-grid regenerative farm. And this would be a place where people can come and get back in touch with their natural cycles. So we talked about the DOER cycle, right? That's dreaming, organizing, executing, and revising. And it's the cycle that everything goes through: the seasons, the moon, the tides, everything does this. And so when we are in a natural space, it's much easier to feel that and to get back in touch and realign with that natural creative cycle. And so I want to create a space where people can come and get back in touch with that natural cycle. So that's my dream. I call it the Wild, with an E on the end because of Oscar Wilde.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my wish.
For men, women, or both?
Let's go with both. I think this is not a gendered thing. I do think women tend to need more encouragement and help around their creativity, because they often have a shame story. Like, one of their first shame stories is that either they weren't creative enough, like their creativity wasn't good enough in some way, like their singing voice wasn't good enough, or their dancing wasn't good enough, or their story wasn't good enough. And so they were told, like, don't quit your day job. And, that was that. Or they were told they're too creative, and so they'll never be useful in the real world because their creativity is the only good thing about them. And so, like, good luck with that, kid, So I think women have that
Wow,
story more
yes.
often.
You're so right with that. It really doesn't matter which side you're born into or which side you pull, I guess you're using. Yes, there's a negative that goes with
With
both
either.
ends.
And this is why,
Wow.
I talk a lot about genius, okay, as being not a thing that you are, but a natural resource that anyone can tap into. Okay. Genius is an energy. It is that flow that you can tap into. And when people are labeled as a genius, okay, that harms them, because then they believe, well, a genius acts like this. And if I don't always act like that, or if I don't always come up with the great idea, then there's something wrong with me. I'm a broken genius. And they have this constant pressure to be a genius. And if someone is labeled as not a genius, the same thing happens. They think I can't possibly tap into genius because I don't have any, because I'm not a genius. I wasn't labeled that way. I'm not gifted, right? All of this is bullshit. It's all bullshit. Wow. We all have the same ability to tap into creativity and innovation and ideas. Okay. What we do with those ideas is totally up to us, but they are out there, and you can, if you are open to that energy, tap into them. It's just, again, a matter of intention, inviting it.
This is bringing up for me a little bit of my own story. So when I left my abusive relationship, who would call me, regular stuff like dumb, idiot, you don't know anything. They all do the same thing. But I left that relationship. Well, actually, when I left that relationship, I was in a powerful state. I did 4 years of living a double life of this real powerful person who was like learning all the things and then also playing this submissive role. So it was like 2 totally separate people. Yeah. But one of the things that I started to do towards the end of that relationship, when I really started to like build up my finances and I was feeling more powerful and I wasn't scared of him anymore. And then obviously now into my real life or my new life, I would say this thing where I would say, I know everything. And it kind of, when I am now engaged. And when I first met my fiance, it's something that I say it all the time. I know everything. And when we first started dating, he was kind of like, girl, like, you got to check your ego a little bit right there. like everything. But it was kind of funny, and it goes along with what you're saying here as far as like tapping into your genius. It just kind of reminded me of this because obviously I don't know everything. So every once in a while, something comes up where like, I didn't know that. And he'd be like, wait a minute, I thought you knew everything. And I'm like, well, now I do. Because I knew things. So it's like, it doesn't matter, whether it's a positive or a negative towards it. I can always flip it back to me being a genius, I guess, if that's the word that we're using. But yeah, it is very powerful internally to stand in a place of believing that you are, like, things.
Yeah. But again, so it's not that, I am a genius, because the word that comes from, génie, okay, in French, it's genius and it's genie. It's an unseen entity. And it was believed by the Greeks that this lived in your home. You had a genius in your walls, right? And you could kind of appeal to it to like, help me with this thing that I'm doing right now. And it would give you ideas and it would give you help. And so I love that. Elizabeth Gilbert talks a lot about this in Big Magic. And the next book that I'm writing is called Spark Genius. And so I kind of jump off of that jumping off point and take that idea even further. If that's true, if there is genius all around us, in our walls, in the trees, in the air around us, how do we tap into that? How do we dance with genius? How do we invite it into our lives? And then how do we use those ideas that came to us to create real value for the people who really matter most to us? One thing I wanted to say, though, about what you said, because this is a great story. A friend of mine has this story that, years and years ago, he was like, okay, I want to know everything. And so he kind of asked the universe, like, hey, tell me, like, I'm ready. I want to know everything. Show it all to me. And so he kind of heard this little laugh internally, and he's like, okay, here you go. And all this information like came at him so fast that he just passed out. And he woke up the next morning with this feeling of like, oh, well, I guess I already knew everything, but like you can't access it all at once, of course.
Yes.
And so it's, again, just about what we choose to focus on. It's like a library that has a really great AI algorithm. Okay. So when you pick a book out of this library of reality, right, and you're reading this book, then it starts showing up, oh, books like this, right? Like you liked a story about a starving artist. Here's 5 more stories about starving artists. And it starts showing up everywhere in your life. Whereas if you put down that book and you pick up a book about an artist that's thriving, that, you know, flipped the script and decided like, I don't have to starve. I'm you know, going to make a great living doing my art. Then more stories like that start to pop up around you. It really depends on what you choose to focus on, what you get more of in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I want to know more about your business. What are you doing? I see all these books behind you.
Yes. Yes. So I am an author, obviously. I'm also a speaker and a coach. And what I focus on is what I call cyclical creative living. So creative living is actually a term, like I said, that Liz Gilbert came up with in Big Magic. And it just is about using creativity to make everything in your life better. But what I focus on specifically is the process of creativity, the creative process, because I think we get so focused on that product that we're judging the product and we're selling the product, and it's all about productivity, right? If I'm not being a productive, then I'm not producing enough product. And it puts the focus on entirely the wrong thing. Because if you're focused on the end product, then you're ignoring the process and you're not going to end up with a quality product. Wow. And so what I try to do is I call myself the Prophetess of Processtivity, because what I'm trying to do is just refocus people onto that process. What is the creative process? And can we enjoy that so much that it just becomes our life? This creative process becomes an enjoyable, easeful way of living our life. And then suddenly we look around and we've got a shelf full of books that we've written, or a business, or 5 businesses that we've created, you know, courses, all of these things, podcasts, the stuff that we create happens because we are in that creative process, that we're open to ideas, and then we're organizing those ideas, we're executing on those ideas, and then we're iterating, we're revising constantly. I have this, I'm going to show you my little chart here. So we have the DOER cycle, right? Oh, so you've got dreaming, organizing, executing, and revising. But as you see, there's a lot more energy that goes into the little pieces of that cycle. And so when you learn how to move through each energetic section of that cycle, you never have to ask yourself anymore, what should I be doing right now? Because you know where you are in your cycle. And so you know exactly what to be doing to make the best use of the energy that you have right now. Because I think what happens a lot of the time is we feel like writers especially, we feel like we have to be writing every day. You get that advice all the time. You know, if you're a writer, you need to be writing every day. I think that's BS. I think you need to be in your creative process every day and working the process. But I think if you're constantly writing, then you're missing a huge, important section of the process that is not writing, that is thinking, that is feeling, that is inviting ideas, and then organizing those ideas and talking to people about those ideas and revising what you've already written. If all you do is write and write and write and write and write, you're not going to be producing a quality product that's actually going to be useful to other people. It's great therapy for yourself to get all that stuff that's in your head out, but that's just journaling. That's not really writing. The process of writing is a lot more than just the writing itself. And that goes for everything. You're painting, you're cooking, building a house, okay? Any creative pursuit is going to have much more to that cycle. And when you trust that process, what happens is you don't get stuck. You don't get stuck in one part of the cycle because you trust that, like, okay, I can move on to this next part and it will come back because it's a cycle and it's going to come back again. So I'm going to get the chance to do this again. I don't have to stay stuck part.
I love that. Definitely.
It's changed everything for me. It's changing for me. And it's changed everything for a lot of my clients too.
So do you do one-on-ones or groups, or what
Yeah,
do you
so
do?
I have the main thing that I do is what I call my Co-Create to Innovate co-working club. And so it's an online co-working club where we just get together and say, hey, here's what I want to work on, right? Because so much of our lives is what other people want us to do, right? What I have to do for my job, what I have to do for my kid, like have to, right? So I want to create a space where for an hour a week, that's not a lot, right? Just 1 hour a week, can you show up for your passion so that your passion can show up for you? Can you just come and say, this is the project that I really want to be working on, and actually take the time to do that? And it's an accountability piece because, of course, we all show up together and say, hey, I'm going to work on this thing. And we tell each other at the top of the hour, this is what I'm going to work on. This is what I'm going to be doing. We unblock each other if we're blocked on anything. And then we turn off our cameras, we turn off our mics, and we get shit done. And then we come back and we say, here's what I just did. So that's the main thing that I offer. I also have one-on-one coaching, of course, and I have a bunch of books and courses and other things to help you really understand what are your natural gifts and how to put them to the best use and how to stay aligned to that cycle, that doer cycle.
That's awesome. Why do you do what you do?
Because I hated not being myself. I hated it. And I hated not using my creative energy in ways that felt good to me. I hated it. It was miserable. And I never want anyone to feel that, to feel stuck like I felt stuck. And so I do what I do just because it worked for me and I figure it might work for somebody else. But the main reason I do it is just to see people light up, you know, people who haven't been lit up for a long time. When I see that light go on behind their eyes, and I know that they're back on that creative path, there is nothing like that feeling. Just watching someone come back to life like that, who has given up on themselves and given up on their authentic gifts and given up on their creativity, to come back to themselves and say, oh my God, this was here all along. Here's this little spark within me.
Yeah, 100. Yeah. Where can people find you on social media?
Well, I recommend that they come to my website, which is audreymac.com. You've got it up there, luckily. I also have a link tree, which I will give to you so that you can give to people so they can find me on my social media. But on Instagram, I am at audreymac.
I love it. Very cool. What's your choice of creativity, by the way?
So like I said, I love writing. I also, there's so many things that I do. I am a performer. I've been a performer all my life. I love to sing. I love to dance. I love to act. I also love to just make up silly stories with my kids. You know, I love to go for long walks and just talk to myself. Like, it's endless. Absolutely.
I love it. Have you written any children's books?
I haven't written any children's books, but what I am doing right now is actually working with my daughter, who is going into middle school right now. And I'm having her kind of translate my books into a language that middle schoolers will understand. I feel like that's such an important age. That's the age where like it's still okay. It's still cool to be curious about things and be like passionate about stuff. And when you get to high school, it's like it's already being suppressed. It's already been pulled out of you. And so if I can catch them at that point, I'm hoping that they can hold on to that and keep that spark alive a lot longer than I'm able to.
Yeah. I think it's between like 12 and 14.
Yep.
I think anything past like 15, it gets a little iffy.
Definitely.
On whether
I would say even younger. I think like kids, 10 and 11 too. Like they understand this stuff. They understand when you say to them like, hey, follow your curiosity. Play is just as important as practice. They get it. It's older people who are like, what do you mean play is as important as practice? That seems frivolous. Like, you don't get it anymore. You lost it. We need to work together.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, this has been great. I so appreciate you taking some time of your day to sit down and chat and teach some of your goodies, your little nuggets of information. For any of you that resonated with Adrienne and all the awesomeness that she is, be sure to check her out on her website, which is right above her head area. It's also in the description below wherever you are watching us. Again, if you are watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so that we know that you were here and you were hanging out with us. Do you have any closing words, my lady?
Go play. Go play. Whatever that means to you, just go play.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I am so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others.